4 payments of $25, or 1 payment of $100. Same math, same total cost, same money leaving your bank account, but your brain doesn't see it that way. In fact, when given the choice, people consistently spend 40% more when they can split payments into installments, even when there's zero interest involved. This isn't stupidity. This is hyperbolic discounting, and it's built a $100 billion industry on a fundamental glitch in how your brain values time. Let's start with a choice. I offer you $50 today or $55 in a week. Which do you take? Most people take the $50 today. That $5 premium for waiting 7 days doesn't feel worth it. Now, different scenario. I offer you $50 in 52 weeks or $55 in 53 weeks. Suddenly, most people wait the extra week for the $5. Same 1 week delay. Same $5 reward. Completely different decisions. This is hyperbolic discounting, and it reveals something uncomfortable about how we think. We don't value time consistently. When costs or rewards are immediate, we care intensely about them. When they're distant, we care much less. Again. And the curve isn't gradual, it's hyperbolic, meaning the value drops dramatically at first, then flattens out. Think about how this shows up in your life. You know you should save for retirement. Intellectually, you understand compound interest, but that 65-year-old version of you feels abstract, almost like a different person. So you spend money today on things present you want. The gym membership you'll definitely use starting Monday. The subscription you'll cancel before the trial ends. The expensive dinner because future. You can deal with the credit card bill. Behavioral economists George Ainsley and Richard Herrnstein documented this in the 1970s and 80s, showing that both animals and humans systematically prefer smaller immediate rewards over larger delayed ones, but reverse their preferences when both options are pushed into the future. This isn't a personality flaw, it's architecture. Your brain is wired to prioritize the now over the later, because for most of human history, the future was uncertain. A bird in the hand really was worth 2 in the bush when predators, disease, and famine made tomorrow a gamble. But this ancient survival mechanism becomes a vulnerability in a modern economy designed to exploit it. And nobody has weaponized hyperbolic discounting more effectively than the buy now, pay later industry. In 2012, Max Levchin, co-founder of PayPal, started a company called Affirm with a simple premise. What if you could split any purchase into installments, see the total cost up front, and never pay interest if you paid on time? It sounded almost consumer-friendly, transparent, honest. The anti-credit card. By 2021, Affirm went public at a valuation of nearly $12 billion. Klarna, a Swedish competitor, hit $46 billion. The entire buy now, pay later sector processed over $100 billion in transactions that year. These companies weren't just successful. They'd created a new category. And the psychology behind their growth is fascinating. Here's what happens in your brain when you see a $1,200 Peloton bike with an option for 4 payments of $300. Your limbic system, the emotional part of your brain responsible for immediate desire, lights up at the image of you cycling to success. Then your prefrontal cortex, the rational part, kicks in and says, $1,200 is too much. But then you see it. 4 payments of $300. That first payment? That's basically the cost of a nice dinner out. You can afford that. The second payment is 2 weeks away, which might as well be next year to your hyperbolic discounting brain. The third and fourth? They barely register as real. You click confirm. Peloton gets paid in full immediately. Affirm takes a fee from the merchant, usually 3 to 6%. And you've just committed to $600 in future payments that feel costless right now. The numbers bear this out. Research from credit bureaus shows buy now, pay later users spend significantly more per transaction than credit card users, with some studies suggesting increases between 20 and 40%. They also make purchases more frequently. But here's the twist that makes this brilliant, not predatory. Affirm and its competitors aren't charging you interest if you pay on time. They're not hiding fees. The math is transparent. 4 times 300 really is 1,200. So why do you spend more? Because the pain of paying is distributed across time, and your brain discounts future pain hyperbolically. That first $300 hurts a little. The payment 2 weeks from now hurts less. The one 6 weeks away barely registers. You're doing math with different currencies, current pain versus future pain, and your brain values them completely differently. Carnegie Mellon neuroscientist George Lowenstein conducted studies in the early 2000s using fMRI machines to watch people's brains while they made purchasing decisions. He discovered something remarkable. When people see prices, their insular cortex lights up. This is the same region that activates when you experience physical pain. Your brain literally processes spending money as a form of suffering. This is why paying with cash hurts more than swiping a card. It's why subscription services that auto-bill feel less painful than manual payments. And it's why splitting a $1,200 purchase into 4 installments reduces the pain by making each individual payment smaller and pushing most of the suffering into a psychologically distant future. The research gets more specific. In a classic study on payment timing, researchers found that people who paid for a vacation in installments before the trip enjoyed the vacation more than people who paid afterward. Why? Because the pain of paying was already in the past, disconnected from the pleasure. But here's where hyperbolic discounting creates a trap. Those future payments you committed to? They don't stay in the future. Eventually, they arrive in the present. And when they do, the psychological distance collapses. Suddenly, that second payment of $300 isn't abstract. It's due today, and you've got rent, groceries, and 2 other buy now, pay later installments, all hitting the same week. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York released data in 2023 showing that buy now, pay later users were more likely to carry credit card debt, have overdrawn accounts, and use payday loans than the general population. This isn't because buy now, pay later causes financial distress. It's because the same psychological trait that makes you undervalue future costs makes you vulnerable to multiple forms of present bias spending. You're not bad with money. You're human. Your brain is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do. Prioritize the immediate over the distant. But you're living in an economy that's learned to profit from that prioritization. Richard Thaler, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2017 for his work on behavioral economics, describes this as the battle between your present self and your future self. Your present self wants the Peloton. Your future self has to make the payments. And thanks to hyperbolic discounting, your present self wins almost every time. Here's what most people don't realize about buy now, pay later. You're not the customer. You're the product. Let's run the actual business model home. When you buy that $1,200 Peloton using Affirm, Peloton doesn't receive $1,200 over 6 weeks. They get paid the full amount immediately, minus Affirm's fee. That fee typically ranges from 3 to 6%, sometimes higher depending on the merchant agreement and risk profile. So Peloton receives somewhere between $1,100 and $1,164, and Affirm collects the full $1,200 from you over time. They make their profit from the merchant, not from you, assuming you pay on time. Why would Peloton accept this? Because they've done the math on hyperbolic discounting. Multiple retailers who adopted buy now, pay later reported average order values increasing by 20 to 40%. Cart abandonment rates dropped. Conversion rates soared. They could afford to pay Affirm 4 to 6% because customers were spending 30% more. It's the same psychology casinos use when they convert your money to chips. The abstraction reduces the pain of paying. It's the same reason Amazon invented one-click purchasing. Any friction between desire and acquisition costs sales. Buy now, pay later removes the friction of price resistance by restructuring when you feel the pain. But some companies have figured out how to beat this system, or at least use it more strategically. Apple, for example, launched Apple Pay Later in 2023, offering their own installment plans with 0 fees to merchants or consumers. Why? Because they're not trying to profit from the lending. They're trying to remove the last barrier to buying more expensive iPhones, watches, and MacBooks. They make their money on the hardware margin, not the payment plan. This reveals something crucial. Hyperbolic discounting doesn't care about interest rates or fees. It cares about the structure of when pain occurs. You could offer someone an interest-free payment plan or one with moderate interest, and as long as the immediate payment is small enough, they'll often choose installments over paying in full, even if they have the cash available. A study by the Federal Reserve found that 40% of buy now, pay later users had the funds available to pay in full, but chose installments anyway. This isn't financial necessity. It's psychological preference. Your brain is literally choosing to pay the same amount of money in a different temporal pattern because that pattern feels better, even though rationally, paying in full eliminates risk and simplifies your financial life. The companies that understand this don't need to trick you. They just need to offer you a choice, and your hyperbolic discounting brain will do the rest. So how do you fight a bias that's hardwired into your neural architecture? The answer isn't to pretend you're rational. It's to design systems that account for your irrationality. First, use the bias against itself. If your brain treats future costs as abstract, make them concrete. Before clicking that for-payment option, open your calendar app. Find the actual dates those payments will hit. Look at what else is due that week. Rent? Insurance? Subscription renewals? Suddenly, that distant future cost becomes a present-day scheduling conflict. Your brain can't discount what it's forced to visualize. Second, implement a 24-hour rule for any buy now, pay later purchase. Not because you need time to think about whether you want the item, you already know you want it, but because hyperbolic discounting is strongest in the immediate moment. The value curve is steepest right now. By tomorrow, the emotional intensity fades, and your prefrontal cortex has more influence in the decisions. Third, and this is counterintuitive, if you're going to use buy now, pay later, pay the first installment immediately and schedule the rest as automated payments in full before making the purchase. This eliminates the psychological benefit that makes you overspend. If you're committing to the total cost up front, your brain can't pretend the future payments don't exist. You'll naturally spend less because you're forcing yourself to feel the full pain of paying. Morgan Housel writes in The Psychology of Money that financial success isn't about being smarter, it's about behaving better. And behavior change doesn't come from understanding hyperbolically discounting intellectually. It comes from building systems that make the right choice easier than the wrong one. Some people have started using what behavioral economists call commitment devices. They'll set up a separate checking account just for installment payments and transfer the full purchase amount immediately. The money is gone from their perspective. The future payments come from an account they don't check regularly. This eliminates the psychological benefit of splitting payments while keeping the budgeting convenience. Here's the broader principle. Your brain isn't going to suddenly start valuing future costs the same as present costs. Evolution doesn't work that fast. So stop fighting your psychology and start designing around it. Treat your future self like a person you're responsible for, because you are. When you commit to 4 payments, you're volunteering a future version of yourself to work for a past version's purchase. Would you do that to a friend? Then here's the real question, the one that closes the loop from the beginning. Why does 4 payments of $25 feel cheaper than $100? Because your brain is doing a different calculation than the math. It's weighing present desire against future costs, and it's using a discount rate that makes distant payments feel almost free. That's not a bug in your psychology. That's the feature buy now, pay later is built on. And now that you see it, you can't unsee it. The next time you're at checkout and you see those 4 little payments, you'll know exactly what's happening. Your hyperbolic discounting brain is whispering that the future doesn't matter. And $100 billion industry is counting on you to listen. If this changed how you see payment options, subscribe for more on the psychology behind money decisions. Next video. Why expensive things feel worth it even when they're not. The endowment effect, explained.